Hello, this is Eric Ford again. I'd like to talk for a few minutes about learning organizations and how strategic leadership goes about building those. So what are the key elements of a learning organization? Well, the first one is inspiring and motivating people with a mission and purpose. As I said in the earlier block, I'm not sure about all this inspiration every day. I sort of have inspiration fatigue where I get tired of the rah-rah elements and just want to get on with the job to a certain extent. Number two is empowering employees at all levels. In my personal life, this is where I see most firms fail. They don't tend to do this very well. We don't devolve authority down into the organization. Classic cases you often hear are some of the hotel firms will give the people who work in what we call the front of house, who are the customer interface people, budgets of $10,000 to make it right. Needless to say, these are fairly swanky hotels, but those employees feel that they're empowered and know to make the customer's experience right, and they have very high customer loyalty. It's called the Ritz-Carlton, so if you get a chance to stay at the Ritz, please do. Accumulating and sharing internal knowledge. This is another element. Does your company have a good knowledge management system and diffusion metric? Or do people hoard information and knowledge and use it as a form of power? One way we see this happening right now in our own lives is when you book an airline. It used to be that firms like Kayak, Travelocity, those search engines that would look across a number of airlines to return you the lowest price, well, they had open access to the airline's fee services. It's called Sabres, what the company was actually called. And they were, guess what, making money off of that information. Well, the airlines, in addition to figuring out that they could charge us for bags, charges for sitting in exit aisles, charges for this, charges for that, also figured out the value of that information. And now they're in a fight with Travelocity, Kayak, and all of those Orbitz sort of companies over the value of that knowledge. So how do you manage knowledge? Is it open? Does it flow freely? I guess on the other extreme of this sort of example, you might think about WikiLeaks. Don't know how long this lecture's lifespan will be, but WikiLeaks is a phenomenon that's going on right now where a Army private or corporal released tens of thousands of internal U.S. government documents to an organization called WikiLeaks, and they've been putting them out into the public domain. Needless to say, the U.S. government's not very happy about that. Somewhat oddly, it's actually helped the U.S. government in many instances where people can now see that our State Department was doing the right thing, behaving ethically, trying to help people, and actually maintaining a fair amount of their confidence. That's where it broke down, is they don't like this information getting out. At any rate, how do you gather and integrate external information? Is everybody in your firm looking for the next opportunity? Are they bringing you the next best thing when they hear it? And does everybody have the ability to challenge the status quo? In other words, can we say, this isn't right, we need to fix this? If the answer to that's no, you're probably not in a learning organization. So let's ask the question. The top-down perspective empowerment, what is it? Does it encourage intelligent risk-taking? Does it trust people to perform? Does it encourage cooperative behavior? Or does it delegate a responsibility? I should also mention, you see the word responsibility here. There's something called unity of command. You can't delegate responsibility without also delegating the authority to command the resources needed to carry out a task. It's this split between authority and responsibility that creates a very negative environment for the people down the line from the leaders, where I'm holding you responsible for things you had no authority to change. It's really a poison in most companies. All right, empowering employees at all levels. This empowerment word, by the way, is getting a little shop worn, but we'll go with it for now. So how does it start? Start at the top, clarify the organization's mission, vision, and value, identify critical tasks for the firm. What has to happen? What has to happen on time, the right way, the right place, etc. Who's responsible for it, and who has the authority to fix it? And do they get rewarded when it's done properly? That's a big, big question. And again, here we see this expression, delegate responsibility. I tell you, it's authority and responsibility. They have to go together. And then you have to hold people accountable. That's the reason they have to have the authority. If you didn't give them the authority and you're holding them responsible, something's gone wrong. The bottom-up view. Start at the bottom by understanding the needs of your employees. What is it that makes their workplace more pleasant, that they want to show up each and every day? Zappos is an online shoe company, and they have no scripts at their call lines. The employees do whatever they think is best. They have the authority to say whatever they want to the customer on the other end of the line in the hope of getting them into the right pair of shoes. Teach employees skills of self-management. This is not a trivial point. Having a learning organization without a major teaching element is nonsensical. If you don't teach people how to do some things and build their skill sets, you're not going to have a learning organization. Build teams to encourage cooperative behavior. In other words, don't pit one team against another all the time. That may work intermittently, and you may build in some rewards for getting to solutions faster. This is the way NASA worked for many, many years, by the way, with this project format. But you need to design cooperative behavior so that people on the teams know when it's time to share and merge their ideas. Again, remember the word strategy doesn't mean to kill your competitor. It means to strive together, and that's how you get ahead. When there's a lack of competition is when the monopoly takes over. So you want good competition. Encourage intelligent risk-taking. In other words, people are going to fail. That's okay. Matter of fact, you want people to fail intermittently. If they're not failing occasionally, they're not trying hard enough. When I was a small child, I played basketball and soccer. I played a lot more soccer, but when I was playing basketball, my mother came to one of the games and said, "You know what? You're not playing hard enough." And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "They give you 5 fouls and you didn't use any of them." This is my mother. Gives you a little insight into my life. But you got to trust people to perform and let them go all the way. Open book management. I'm a big fan of this. People should be able to see the numbers. In other words, they need to know how much money the company's bringing in, how much it costs to do things, so where the money comes from, where the money goes, and what the value of their contribution is. If they know that, they will seek to maximize it. It's just that simple. Information is aggregated once a week from the top to the bottom level. This doesn't always have to be once a week, but some regular interval. You see some dynamic systems that occur in real time all the time. Extensive training on how to use and interpret the numbers. We often hear the expression at the university that we're going to move to zero-based budgeting. This is actually a tacit threat from the administrators. The fact of the matter is we already have zero-based budgeting. They can do whatever they want. The fact is they don't have very good metrics, so what do? They use historical budgeting, where we start by saying how much did we give you last year, and then we go up or down from there. And that's a flawed system as well, but I digress. Gathering and integrating external information. The internet, you may have heard of it. You may be watching it as we speak. You must be. This accelerates speed with which useful information can be located. In my field of research, if you go to Google Scholar, it's absolutely remarkable. You might also use Google Trends. Is a really fun thing to go type in some of your keywords and see how they're trending. Employees can use garden variety of traditional resources to acquire external information. There are firms that actually aggregate up information and disseminate it. Benchmarking. This is the internal process of gathering typically quality information, although certainly financial and other metrics are used as well. And we see how we perform over time. If our benchmark is X and we achieve Y, do we get rewarded, etc. And focus directly on customer information. A lot of this slide's coming out of the domain of total quality management, by the way. All right, challenging the status quo and enabling creativity. Uh, in the Prussian army, 100 some odd years ago, probably getting on 150 years ago, nobody was promoted to the rank of general unless they had had a demerit or a negative mark, meaning that at some point they had challenged the status quo or screwed up bad enough that they had some sort of blemish in their record. Think about it. You had to have failed at some point to become a general. How does that play out in today's society where we videotape everything everybody does, every off-color remark or slip of the tongue or bong hit, for example, if you're a swimmer, becomes public domain. Sorry about that, a little hic right there. But the point I was making is it's okay to make mistakes, both at work and in your life. As that example just brought in, my computer buffered out on me there. Establish a culture of dissent where it's okay for people to say, this isn't good. Encourage risk-taking. Again, pretty obvious. And experimentation and curiosity. Can we change things for the better? Best practices in learning from failure. Formalize forum for failures. To keep failures and the valuable lessons they offer from getting swept under the rug, carve out time. Talk about how these failures actually can help us in the future. Move the goalpost. Innovation requires flexibility in meeting goals. In other words, you can move them up or make them higher. That's all right. Share personal stories. I guess I've told you about some of my personal failures along the way, so you understand how that works. And I think it makes it okay for people to say, I made a mistake. Oftentimes, outsiders are important. You can use outsiders to help mediate a discussion and talk about it in an open way that's positive. Prove yourself wrong, not right. In other words, discard an idea. Sometimes people come back to me the next day and say, I didn't like the conclusion we came to, can we revisit it? And if you do that and it works, so much the better. And again, celebrate small failures. When I get papers rejected, it's no big deal. It's how do we pick ourselves up and get to the next point. All right, I'll be back in just a minute for part 6.